Hi guys, this is Stephanie with House of Fritz, and I'm so happy you're here today watching this video. I have several projects planned, and I hope you really enjoy them and that they inspire you to start creating. So for my first project, I have this mini muffin baking pan, and it's not quite a mini muffin. I don't know, it's somewhere in between a regular size muffin and mini muffins, but I picked it up at the Goodwill for a few dollars, and I decided that I was going to make this tray that has little pumpkins in it. And I've seen this done with, like Easter eggs and different things like that, and so I thought I'm going to do that with this, but I did decide I wanted it to be a different color. That silver was very bright. If it had been, more aged and grungy, I would have maybe left it. I don't know. But I took some paint, and I believe it was DIY, weathered wood. It's a dark brown, and some sea spray texture additive to make a mixture to paint this tray with. And I really wanted to create some texture on it. So when you do that, you need to use a brush that's not expensive, because that stuff is really rough on your brush. But I did the back side, and then I'm going over the front, and I'm just stippling it. So while you can brush it on, you would probably want to go back and stipple it, which is just tapping up and down. So I go around the edges. Don't need to worry about the inside of those cups, because I'm going to cover them up anyway. So I did the bottom, and then I'm going around the edges and the flat top surface. And I do want to thank you guys so much for watching these videos. I am getting so close to 1,000 subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed, would you please just go push that button, subscribe, help me get to 1,000, so that YouTube will change the way it shows my content, and just it will further my business that way. But I am so thankful that you guys are here, and I'd love to chat with you guys in the comments. So please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these projects and tell me which one's your favorite. And so anyway, but back to the project, I am going to paint these little pumpkins. I have just kind of a variety of pumpkins, and they were actually from another project a couple of years ago. I spray painted a bunch of them white. Some of them were already white, and then I had a few orange ones. I was trying to find all the right sizes to fit together, to make it look a little bit uniform, but so that they would fit in the trays and not push against each other too much. But I picked out 3 colors of my Dixie Belle paint, and 2 of them are, I believe, chalk mineral. No, one is the silk line, and the other is the chalk mineral paint. Let me see. Oh, yes. So I used vintage duck egg, which is chalk mineral paint, and Chantilly, which is the silk paint, and the Highlands color, which is silk. And I believe I used the Chantilly and mixed with this rusty nail. So it's kind of a hybrid mixture, but I made a lighter shade. I probably made it a little too pink, but I thought it would dry darker. And of course it did dry darker, but not as dark as I really wanted it. So, but it still ended up to be such a pretty color, and I had quite a bit of it left over, unfortunately. When I started with the white, I started with too much, but I mixed it all together, and then I decide how many pumpkins are going to be each of those colors. So we're going to have this sort of pink orangey color, and the Highlands, which is kind of a sage green, and the vintage duck egg, which is a really pretty sort of kind of blue with a tiny bit of green in it. Very pretty colors. And so I decide to paint these up. I'm not worried about the stems right now. I'll go back and touch those up later, but I paint them, and they all took 2 coats, pretty much 2 coats of the paint, and I will seal them as well. with the Dixie Belle Satin Clear coat. And while I was painting them, I painted quite a few extras because I was going to make 2 additional pans with a regular muffin pan that I found at the Dollar Tree. And so I went ahead, and while I was painting the 8 pumpkins for the first tray, I painted a bunch of extras, and you can see they're a little bit bigger pumpkins that are going to be used on that. So really, this was super easy and very therapeutic to just do kind of a no-brainer and paint these pumpkins solid. And I really love making fall decor. It's been so fun. I do decorate for Halloween first, and then fall, the day after Halloween, I kind of pull a bunch of the Halloween stuff down and still leave up other things that are, generically fall as well. And then right after Thanksgiving, I'll move into Christmas. But here you see me sealing the tray that I painted, the pan. I have to do that because that is the base of that other, is the DIY clay base paint, and you have to seal it. So then I move on to sealing all of the pumpkins. I have not done their stems yet, but when I do, I use a silk paint, which is the all-in-one, so it has the top coat on it. I did go ahead and seal the other ones with silk paint so that the sheen on the pumpkins would all be the same. Here I am using some Spanish moss, and I'm sort of just creating like a little bed for the pumpkins to sit on, and it kind of just adds a lot of texture, and it's ends up being really cute. But I don't have to fill the whole cup with it. I'm just hot gluing it around the edge because that's all you're going to see anyway, and it would be a waste to fill that whole cup up and then put a pumpkin on top of it. So you saw the tail end of me gluing it down, and here I am just kind of figuring out where the pumpkins are going to go, and then I will hot glue them down. And I just put 4 or 5 dots of hot glue, and then I put it in there and hold it till it seems like it's cooled enough to hold it in there. And of course, I'm dealing with all the hot glue strings. There's got to be a way around that. I have not found one yet, but it's okay. I usually just pick them all off at the end. So I've glued them all on, and then I took off the little stems and put a little bit of the Spanish moss under the stem and stuck it back in. By that point, I had already painted all of the stems. I believe I used the color Truffle, which is a silk paint by Dixie Belle. So all you need for this is the tiniest amount of the moss. You can see I have hot glue on my fingers and it's all sticking to me. And you just stick it, a little dot of glue, and stick it down, and then put your stem back in, and it all just holds in there together. And that's what I do on each of those. That truffle color is a really pretty brown color. It's very, I want to say, sort of muted, if that makes any sense. It's not too much red in the shade of brown. It's such a pretty color. And it's one of the new silk colors by Dixie Belle. They came out with about, I want to say 7 or 8 colors a couple months ago, and that's one of them. Very pretty. So the final part of this is that I'm going to tear some fabrics and make some strips to kind of go around this tray just to embellish it. And kind of, I think I go around it like a present, where you put it over there and you cross it around, and then you tie it around the front. And I do that, and I just leave these pieces just kind of hanging there. I'm fixing it. I want to make sure you can see the patterns of the fabrics. And then I get some of the other pieces to make one of those, I guess, messy bows. And so I do that, and here's the pieces of fabric, and I'm laying them in there just because I want to make sure certain parts show a little more than others. And then I take the other leftover pieces that are part of the big strips, and I just tie a big knot and just tie it really tight, and I trim it up. And so I really just wanted a really messy, raggy sort of bow. And you know, when you tear fabric, there's going to be lots of strings, and so you kind of have to kind of clean those off and get them out of the way. There's a lot of fidgeting when it comes to these bows, and you know, when you're trying to put the finished touches on your projects. Gave it a little haircut, and now I got to clean up all the pieces of moss and get them out of the way. There is one more embellishment I'm going to add to this. I decide I want to do a tag, and I pull out some drop cloth and I cut a piece so that I can make a tag. And I use some rubber stamps and some permanent ink. I believe I used the color black permanent ink, and I stamped. I ended up making another one for one of the other projects that I do today. And I bought this little set. I think I bought it at a thrift store, and it was missing like 2 letters. And so far it hasn't been a problem until today. I was going to put fall is here, and I did not have, I believe it was the letter H. I think that's the one that was kind of the problem. And so I went ahead and took out another stamp set that I own and used other letters that are very similar, but it's slightly different. I don't even know that anybody would notice that. But anyway, so I dipped it in the ink, and I'm just cleaning off the plastic so it doesn't rub on the canvas drop cloth. And then I'm just going to put that word right there, leaving it, you know, one spot open for the letter E for fall is here. And when you have stamps, you really do want to clean off the ink after you use them so that you don't have different colored residues on there. Because if I went back and used, let's say, the color white ink, and I stamped those stamps back into the white, it would probably leave some black in there, so you kind of contaminate your colors. So just clean your stamps, and they'll be ready for you for the next time. I pulled out a little bag of safety pins, and they're kind of oxidized. There were a lot of little gold ones in there, but they, you know, they've aged, which is actually just perfect for this project. They kind of tarnish and age. And I'm going to use that little gold pin to pin this tag to the bow. Just have to decide where I want to put it and what I'm going to do. Of course, I have to get my hands to cooperate because I've been having more issues with my rheumatoid arthritis, and my fingers will kind of get stuck at times, and they just don't move the way they used to. So I was kind of dealing with that at that point too. So I'm trying to make sure I get it pinned in there where it will twist a certain way to be seen, so it doesn't have to lay super flat. And of course, these tiny little safety pins are hard to close. And I think that is such a good little embellishment. I think it's super cute. I just love how this turned out. It will be so fun on a little tray, and I love all the colors in it. I did go back over those pumpkins with a little bit of a dry brush, the pink pumpkins. So it was, you know, a little bit paler than I wanted, so I went ahead and added some more. So my next project is going to be a can that was thrifted. I believe this was like $1 or something. I did clean it up beforehand really well so that my paint and stuff would stick. And this paint is the leftover paint from the pumpkin muffin tray that I mixed. In that paint, I put, I believe it was a brown color from DIY paint, weathered wood maybe, and it is a really good clay-based paint. But I put some sea spray in it, which is a texture additive, and I wanted to create some really good texture, and that particular additive also helps it to stick to the surface of the paint. And when I did this, I left a bit of the can not painted so that I can put some floral transfers there. I will go back and paint it, but I'm just going to use the plain paint without the sea spray in it so that it's a flatter surface for the transfers. And I do the same thing on the lid, and I kind of forgot and painted it, and then I went back and took a wet wipe and wiped off a section of that because I was going to put a small transfer on the lid as well. And so here I am wiping it off, realizing, oh, I need to leave that surface open for the transfers that are going to be put on there. So I just take it and wipe it off, but once it dries, it's not coming off. So I definitely had to do that while it was wet. And then this first section of it will dry, this first layer, and I will go back and add more of just the paint so that it's a smoother surface for the transfers to stick to. But this particular texture is so great to add to give something character, to give it an aged look, or just to, make it not so simple and plain. And so here I am, I'm adding the rest of it on the bottom, and then I'll go around the top edge as well. Actually, I think I do the very top edge with just paint because I want that lid to go on there a little bit easier. And if I put that texture around the top, that lid will not go on there. And of course, I'm using the heat tool to speed up the drying process because I want to get to that next layer of paint. The second layer I do all over the whole can, and it's just paint. I do not add any more of the texture to that. And so here are the transfers I use. It's the classic rose transfer. It's a fall color theme of roses and flowers. And so I had cut out this particular piece of the transfer. This transfer pack comes with 3 different sheets, and it is, one of them is kind of a background sheet with a brown pattern, and then the second one is a full sheet of florals, which would be great for like a tray or something that you want to use a large section on. And then this sheet, which has pieces of flowers so that you can use it on multiple things. And right here I'm layering it. So you can see I'm just trying to figure out where that transfer is going to go so that I can layer some more pieces to fill in and make it more interesting. So I had cut them apart and just trying to get a feel for what I'm going to do. And this is, it takes a minute to kind of figure it out. And of course, those small pieces that are behind there, you're definitely going to have to put them on first so that they hide, or the big piece will hide the sudden stops of the stems where that you cut the transfer. It just takes a minute to kind of plan this out. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. It's really more of an opinion on what you like. So here I, of course, am trying to hold all the pieces there so I can sort of take some of them off, the backings off, and stick them down. And I kind of can do that. There's a place where I'll have to trim back a piece of the clear plastic so that it doesn't overlap. Just kind of have to be strategic. So I put on those transfers, and then what I realized is I actually did not let it dry enough. So I had to do a little repair job with some sealer, and then I let it dry overnight, and I come back to it the next day. And I couldn't remember how I was going to lay this particular part of the transfer down. And I laid it down, and it's like, ooh, can I pull it back up without it tearing off the piece? Because once you lay these down, you pretty much are set. You have to almost every time leave it that way. And this is where the issue happened the day before, and so the transfer didn't really stick. So when I lifted that up, it pulled that piece up. So here I am sticking it back where I want it and trying to get it at the right spot, because I'm trying to avoid those heavy texture areas. I left a smoother spot open, but it doesn't mean that I planned it 100% perfect. So I'm just trying to stick it in there where the rough parts do not get in the way. So I put that one on there, and now I'm going to put a few small pieces on the lid to embellish it. And this, rubbing transfers on different items, like these metal tins, or you could do something like a solid ceramic pitcher, or something, that's really plain. You could embellish that, and you wouldn't even have to paint it, but they're super easy to do. And you can do, like, this one's kind of a fall theme, but you could get some Christmas transfers and, decorate something up as a gift. And it's super easy to do. So if you haven't played with transfers, you really should, because while they may be, you may think, oh, that's too much, I don't know what to do with that, it's super easy, and it's really fun too, and kind of relaxing. So there I have put the last one on, and I'm just taking my fingernail and trying to make sure I get the edges down really well in a couple of spots. And so the plastic is still in between my tool there and the actual transfers. So I just wanted to make sure certain edges were pushed down really well. So now I am sealing the whole can with Dixie Belle. I think I used the clear satin top coat. And you do have to seal the transfers. And I had already sealed the spots. Look at my brush just fell apart. I use a lot of cheap brushes, and so that has happened before, and I was like, let me get my pliers and just push it down and try to make sure it's not going to fall off again. But you do have to seal the transfers to help protect them. I did seal the paint prior to putting a transfer on, because you really do need kind of a slicker surface for the transfers to stay on, especially if you're using chalk paint or clay paint. You need to make sure those are pretty sealed before you try to put transfers down. And then you also need to let that dry thoroughly before you put a transfer down. So it's really best to wait overnight and do the transfers the next day. I always try to rush it though with my heat tool, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes I have to stop and wait till the next day. So I'm going ahead and putting the clear coat on here just to seal the whole thing in, and I did that to the lid, and it just protects the whole thing. It just protects everything. And I am, most people are going to want to be able to dust and wipe things down if they need to, and so the clear coat is what protects the finish on all your items. I'm finding that there's some little pieces of moss left on my surface from the pumpkin tray that I did, because inevitably there's lots of little pieces of that moss grass stuff after you use it. But here I'm making a tag. I created a tag for the pumpkin tray there, and decided I needed to do a tag for this particular item too. And so I take some strips of fabric that were torn and I create just a messy little bow, which is I literally just tear another piece of fabric and tie it around the strips of fabric to create this sort of shaggy bow, and then I tie it on the handle. It was super easy. And then I'm going to take that tag and pin it into it with a little gold pin. And that whole thing is just super easy to do. The tag I made was with a piece of drop cloth and an inexpensive set of stamps. And there I went ahead and tied another little strip on the straight pin just to help finish the embellishment. And I just love how this turned out. It is such a fun fall little item to have, and I don't know if you end up decorating with fall stuff, but it would be fun just sitting in your kitchen next to your utensils. So this project is some floral arrangements that I'm making, just some small arrangements that will be able to decorate a small space or on a tier tray or just in addition to another vignette. But I took some amber bottles. This particular one is vintage, and I found it at a thrift store for just $1. I'm going to use some Redesign transfers. It's the Shimmering Script. It's a foil transfer, and this one is so pretty and so very easy to use. I will cut these apart and use what's left of this on 3 different bottles. So I'm just trying to figure out where I want to cut them, and because I do want to try to stretch this out for the 3 bottles. This transfer set is so versatile. You can use it in combination with other transfers or just by itself, but it is one of kind of my main transfers that I use a lot just because it's so pretty and comes off on your item very easily. And so I decide which one of these pieces that I'm going to use on this bottle, and I get out my rubbing alcohol. I would like to clean glass surfaces and a lot of surfaces, honestly, with rubbing alcohol to get any oil or residue off so that the transfers adhere properly. So I'm just going to get some alcohol on a lint-free cloth and just clean this bottle. I do carry the Redesign products that I use at my little shop in the Painted Tree in North Richland Hills, Texas, and we are working on a website so that if you don't know where else to get them, you're able to purchase from the link that would be in the description. We're still working on it, so it will be live hopefully not too long from now, and I would just love your support in furthering my business that way. So I'm taking the transfer and I'm deciding exactly how I'm going to place it and how far it kind of stretches around. So I peel back part of the backing so that I can lay it down, and I pretty quickly go ahead and take off the rest of the backing. It is not too difficult because this is really easy to control because it's such a small piece. But this particular one, it actually sticks really well, and pretty much while I am using the burnishing tool, it's not really that necessary with this particular product. It's just kind of a very sticky surface and it will come off and stick super easily. But I am going around because there's so many little lines. I am going to use that tool to kind of scratch it. Otherwise, just rubbing it really well will probably be enough. I've used this on multiple other projects, and it is very sticky and comes off when you pull the sheet off, it comes off very easily. You just want to make sure that when you are pulling it off that you see that all of the foil has laid down, and if it hasn't, you can just lay it back down and push it against the surface again and see how pretty that is. the color of the bottle really is perfect for these foil transfers. So I do get out 2 more bottles in staggered sizes down, and I had to lean over to be able to see where I was putting that. When that happens, my head gets in the way. So sorry about that. But anyway, I went ahead and added this particular piece of transfer to a small amber bottle. I have a bunch of bottles like this because I make homemade vanilla. Maybe one day I'll do a video showing you guys what I do with that, but I order them in bulk. And so I had the vintage bottle, but I also had these other bottles that I thought would be perfect for this project. So I am peeling this one off as well, and then I'm going to do the third piece on another bottle. I think this is maybe like an 8-ounce bottle. The other smaller one was probably a 4-ounce, maybe 4-ounce bottle. I might have it wrong, but you can use any size bottle as long as you have enough of the transfer to go on it. But I just wanted to accentuate these. I thought that'd be perfect for some fall florals. And really, we're not spending too much time on cutting the flowers and sticking them in there, because it's super easy just to take a few little stems and pop them into the bottles. But I want to show you what they look like, and then the next screen will show you what the finished project looks like. I will then probably glue a little bit of the flowers kind of around the edge so they stay, because really I just stuck them in there and then tied a piece of fabric on there, and you could easily take them out. But the one that's the vintage bottle, I tied a piece of velvet on there with some sprigs of greenery and florals, so it could look a little bit fall. That one could probably carry into the Christmas holidays too. Really, all of them could. But you just gather a few little sprigs of leftover florals and greenery and stick them down in the bottles. And then I used a piece of ripped fabric on the other 2 to create the bows. And I think they turned out really cute. They would be perfect to sit accenting maybe a stack of books, or you could put them on tier trays, or really just about anywhere. They're small enough that they can just be part of a vignette and just kind of finish that off. But I used this velvet ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I'm sure some of the florals came from there, as well as Michael's and I believe Walmart too. But these just turned out really cute, and I do think you could use them in the fall, and also they would probably carry into Christmas a little bit too, just because of the gold and the little bit of red that's in them. But I did put a little bit of hot glue right at the opening, just to kind of help everything sort of tack down a little bit. It would be very easy to remove these florals if you wanted to use the bottle for something else. So I didn't want to use an abundance of glue, because I just wanted them to sort of stay for this use. And if anyone wanted to change them out and just have the bottle by itself, you could definitely do that. And here's the finished piece. I just love how the writing turned out. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me during these projects. I hope you learned a few things. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was relaxing. And again, I would just love for you guys to subscribe and like my video, and maybe even share it out to some friends that love to do creative projects. I'm so thankful you guys are here. You guys tell me what you think in the comments of these projects. Tell me if you would do something different, and if you've created anything like this, and tell me what your favorite is. I will chat with you guys in the comments, and I will talk to y'all later.